Hey, my name is Attorney Walter Rudolph Hnot III, and I'm with Disability Resolution PA. I'll say it again, Attorney Walter Rudolph Hnot III. Let's go ahead and begin. The question is, why don't we just fix the SSA disability benefits system for the people, right? The United States, well, I can't say just citizens, well, because there's all these different options and availability for people who are not naturalized, born here, etc. Why don't we just fix it, right? Okay, so the bottom line is the country is constantly running out of money when it comes to super funds that it has to throw money into. And one of the unique things about this country is that it has the ability to take a really valuable currency, right, US dollar, and manipulate it by just printing as much as they need of it. And so imagine a bank account where you could just keep withdrawing from it and it would just go down to zero, but money would still come out. And that's the kind of government that we have. And the problem with that is that we as a people have voted in and kept voting in these benefits for ourselves, these rights, these options, these potential rights. And as a result of that, we have basically a system that the country can't really afford continuously. That's why 2016, 2017, we see all these little scares here and there about, the Social Security Disability Benefits Program running out of money. And they'll say, okay, and then in this year into the future, it'll run out of money. And, the reality of it is that there's no immediate fix to it. Unless people realize that Social Security Disability Benefits and Social Security, like Title II retirement, survivor, adult child disability benefits, spousal benefits, like all these different benefits, until they realize that all these have a very large cost. And then until people realize that the government just keeps going ahead and taking in tax money and then bribing the U.S. public with it and manipulating the U.S. public with it, and then this kind of goes over and over and over and over again. And where we end up at the end of it is basically a system where people, some are very lucky and they receive it because they had a good judge for disability benefits, and some aren't so lucky because they had a tougher judge. In Orlando, we have some really great judges, and then we have some really tough judges. So what's the fix? Well, the fix is realistically that we need better medical treatment and medical care that actually cures the problems that this country has. And the problem with that is that these mega companies out there, right, because if we fix a lot of these medical conditions, then people could continue to work and be more useful to society going forward. So the reality of this whole situation is that, basically, if we can't fix a lot of these medical conditions, which most of these cures will never, come out. I mean, we saw the Hep C cure come out, and then we saw a bunch of the companies coming out with that because, the ones that had it first didn't want the new little guy on the block to go ahead and get their product out and make billions off of it. So, it's not a capitalist market. It's a, market where basically they're going to hold on to whatever cures they have and then just release upkeep medicine. That costs zillions of dollars per person, which is put on the shoulders of Medicare and Medicaid of the United States government to go ahead and pay for those, which in turn raises the cost of disability benefits because a lot of you guys still sit out there and think, wow, I'm getting a check per month. This is amazing. That's not what's amazing. That's not it. That's not what's amazing in all this. The check per month, that's small. That's very tiny in all this. What's really amazing is the Medicare and Medicaid that you get with it and being able to utilize those healthcare programs to their maximum benefit, which most people don't use, which is ironic, and then they get hit with a CDR, which is a continuing disability review because they haven't been to the doctor when they could have gone for either free or next to free. So as a result of this situation and system, what we have is a lot of new medications coming out that don't cure anything. They just seem to treat the symptoms really well. And because of that, so if we wipe that out, right, we wipe out our expectation because the government has been completely unable to control these big farm companies. If we wipe out our expectation, which we shouldn't, but we're going to for this hypothetical, if we wipe out our expectation that they go ahead and actually fix that system. If we just say it can't be fixed and we move forward, then we get to essentially, okay, what types of individuals should be on disability benefits? And, I think that the reality of this whole thing is that we don't have a bad system in that regard. Okay, so you guys at this point, you probably know what the 5-step sequential process is. Those are the elements for Social Security disability benefits for an adult. There's a 3-step sequential process for children. Those are the elements for deciding if somebody has disability or is a severely disabled person that could receive disability benefits. And that's one of the methods that we use to decide whether or not an individual basically has the capacity to receive Social Security disability benefits, with the point being, the overall idea being, that the reasoning for it is that they have in fact proven that they have an inability to go ahead and work. And by and through that, they can't earn money, ergo they're disabled, ergo they need a check to be able to sustain their existence. Not a lot of money, but a check to sustain their existence. So that's one of the main ways. That's the 5-step sequential process. The other way is called and that's called a vocational allowance, when they can't work and they get disability benefits because of it. The next way is basically when they meet, equal, or exceed a listing, which is just element 3. There's a quick little escape, trap door there where you can get through the disability benefit system faster, which is if you go ahead and can show that you meet, equal, or exceed a listing, then in that case, you can actually be found disabled at element 3. Now, I've had a lot of younger claimants say they read the listing, and when I say younger, I mean under 55. They've read the listing and they fit into this and they fit into that of the listing. I just want to remind you guys that you have to be able to prove those extra sections, those ors and ands. So for example, one that came up yesterday, which was, I know I'm disabled because I meet this listing. And there were options pertaining to the 1.02, 1.04 as to ambulation limitations. And what popped up was this individual, had a prescription for a wheelchair or walker, and basically, they went to their CE, their consultative examination, and instead of going with their wheelchair walker, they opted to go ahead and utilize, which they believed wholeheartedly, which I still don't know how they believe this, but they believed it wholeheartedly, that the equivalent of a wheelchair walker is orthopedic shoes and pain medication, that was the equivalent of a wheelchair walker. Obviously, if you guys are sitting there thinking, yeah, that sounds about right, then there's a problem. If you guys are sitting there thinking that's just ridiculous, that doesn't even sound like the same severity or even close, then you'd be on point, because the whole point of that ambulation-based restriction statute is that you had like 2 walkers, 2 wheelchair, 2 crutches, 2 canes, a walker, or a wheelchair, meaning that your arms were going to be busy doing something. You know what I mean? That your arms are busy, right? So both hands you got to wheel yourself, you got to roll yourself, you know what I mean? You got to use them for crutches, canes, that your arms are busy, your hands are busy, right? That's a major aspect of why that statute even exists, because, they don't want people coming up and saying, well, I'm just as severely disabled because I have to use orthopedic shoes and pain medication to control it. If you are among that type of young individual, usually in your 30s and 40s, who thinks that that's equivalent, then your disability attorney might withdraw from your claim because they just don't want to have to deal with it anymore because of the crazy scope of how you come to conclusions. So let's talk about that real quick. Let's say that the listing requirements say, or this, and this, and this, and this, is really tough to prove. You never want to have to go after the really tough to prove ones, because then you're just putting yourself at the mercy of somebody who has to process 50 claims that day, and somehow magically you think they're just going to magically think that you can do that thing or not do that thing. You have to have solid proof. Otherwise, they're just going to stamp it denied. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you want the truth to how the whole thing works, that's how it works. And if you want to be the one that wants to fight it up to the Supreme Court, that's cool. That's awesome. But you're going to be waiting 10 years to be able to get there. Sorry, but that's how it works. All right. Now, a lot of you guys tend to say that my videos are very aggressive and forward, but truthful, very truthful about how the system works. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm trying to get across to you is how this really works. If you're playing the chutes and ladder game, how do you get to the top? How do you climb to the top? How do you not end up falling to the bottom? So back to why is the disability system broken when it comes, why don't we just fix the SSA disability benefits program for people? When it comes to that question, we've talked about medical, right? Big farm. Let's say we can't fix that. Now we've talked about the changing of those programs inherent to it. So we talked about the 5-step sequential process. Not a bad element system. We should keep it. We talked about the listings. Not a bad setup. We should keep those. Those are how we tell if you're severely disabled by statute. CALs, compassionate allowance listings. That's how we tell if you're like really, really bad. You're going to die, you know, because you have an extremely bad disability, to be found really, you know, disabled really fast. All of these things are not necessarily bad ways to define whether or not somebody is disabled. But what's going to happen in the future, and I'm telling you this right now, and you can sit there and go, no, but I'm telling you right now what's going to happen is they are going to continue, and they've already been doing it in 2017 and 2018, they're going to continue to tighten that belt on what the listings require, so that more and more people have to meet less of the severe standard and more of the extreme standard, even when they label it as severe. So just keep in mind, that's what the future holds for all of this. That's where this is going, is that's how they're going to manipulate it. Because remember, they're in control of the book, right? The book that says whether or not somebody is in fact disabled. And if they can manipulate that to be even tougher for you to be found disabled, then that's not only what they're doing right now, but they're getting better at it, and they're doing it more and more quickly as the years come to fruition. All right, so I don't think the elements are bad. I just think they're going to manipulate the listings to make it even harder to get onto disability benefits. So that may not be fixing it for you, because ultimately it make it hard for you to get onto the program, but it is fixing it for the complete money crisis that this country is going through, which means not as many people on the program. So, you know, the problem is, though, I'm in the business of getting people on the program, so then it always becomes my duty to figure out how to get them through this crazy gauntlet. All right, so we talked about the medical, right? Big Farm. Said, okay, if we can't fix that, let's go to the next one, the elements of disability. And if we can't fix that one, right, where do we go from there? Where do we go after the elements of disability to show, you know, that somebody's disabled? I think the next one of importance should be the fakers. I know a lot of people, because I get calls all the time about overpayment claims when they got a fake crazy check. They pretended to be crazy for a couple of months. They went in and out, in and out, in and out of the medical facility. And then at that point, they basically just went ahead and got a disability check. And life is good. Life moves forward. Hey, here we go. There's a lot of people who do not deserve a disability check, and they're getting kicked off left and right. And the reason why they're getting kicked off left and right is because they're doing analysis study and sending out people to actually review them. There are people who are on the disability program who are getting really quite large payouts from companies by doing jobs kind of on the side for them, and then, you know, basically, you know, a family member might have a company, and then they pay the, you know, other family member that's disabled under the table, and then all of a sudden they're getting a windfall. Don't do that. Like, if that's your gig, just do a ticket to work program. Just do a ticket to work program. For 5 years, you get to work and keep your money. Just do a ticket to work program. You know, if you're thinking about that, just do a ticket to work program. You get to keep your disability benefits, and you get to work and keep your other, you know, vocational benefits. Just do a ticket to work program. You don't have to like sleaze the system. Just ticket to work program. If you don't know what that is, just go watch the other videos. So the category 3 is like, how do we deal with all these scammers and all these people that really shouldn't be on the system? And remember, a lot of the people that shouldn't be on the system are usually the best screamers and whiners. They're usually the best at working the system. So they'll be like on YouTube and Vimeo, and they'll be on the news. They took away my, and all these things. A grain of salt or a beach ball. Just realize that like the loudest people are the ones that end up on TV. Doesn't mean they're right. Usually they're just, you know, trying to get their point across. But the bottom line is, just be aware that there's usually a problem as to why they should not have been found disabled to begin with. And if your benefits are taken away from you, sit back and think, have I been going to the hospital? Have I been utilizing my Medicare/Medicaid? Am I still the disabled person that originally filed for Social Security disability benefits, etc.? Okay. All right, so we covered a couple of categories. Category 1 is Big Farm. Category 2 are the elements. Category 3 are the fakers. And let's do one more. Category 4, which in my opinion is the SSA is not hiring enough people to process these claims with compassion. So when you work for the government, you become very jaded and devoid of that classic emotional connection to the human race. And the reason why that is because, you know, as I sit here talking to you guys, even I know that I've become more and more jaded. You know, I've seen enough drug dealers destroy enough lives. I've seen enough child molesters get away with things. My point is, you become jaded to the horrors of humanity that are either created by humanity or are put upon humanity by nature. And as a result of that, you tend to not take a second look or review, or you just don't take the time to really learn whether or not this claim should in fact be given disability benefits, or if there's more to it, or yada yada yada. So I think it's a little unfair for the SSA to continue to put more, that like expression, you're going to put 20 pounds of apples in a 10-pound bag. We're at this point, we're at 100 pounds of apples in a 10-pound bag for the SSA, because the local field office people are just trying to survive. There's so much work. Especially in Orlando, the DDS personnel are just trying to process the claim and get it done and move it forward. ALJs are working all day, working all night. Well, they're not working at night, but you know what I mean. That's probably a better job as to all of them. But in order to be there, you've got to be selected, have your background and knowledge and law degree and yada yada yada. So it's tough to get into that job. So the point here that I'm kind of getting at, relevant to this scenario, is that they do not, and it's not a money thing. I mean, sure, they could always pay them more money, but there's just not enough people. If they sit there and look at a file for an hour, and they should have been able to sit there and look at it for 2.5 hours, there's not enough people at the SSA, at the government, to spend time reviewing these claims in a proper manner in order to have that compassion, that humanistic quality of compassion for that claim before them. Which is why the feeling of most people now is just they're heartless bastards, but they're not. They're just constantly working a ton of claims, and the listings are becoming more and more extreme as to what you need to be in order to be found disabled. Okay, so just keep in mind it's that mild, moderate, severe, we call it marked, and then extreme. Extreme is the very, very heightened, disabilities. So either way, that is my approach to answering without any pre-thought. And I should think more about these, but I just don't have time to think more about how I'm going to actually explain these videos to you guys, because after this I have to work for about 6 hours on Sunday, and it's 5:20 p.m. right now. And then you wonder why I wake up on Monday. I'm super duper tired. It's because I worked all weekend. But alas, the question we answered: why don't we just fix the SSA disability benefits system for the people? All right. My name is Attorney Walter Rudolph Hnot III. If you want a free consultation, the most up-to-date information, or a custom video made about a particular topic that you like, that's fine. Shoot me an email or give me a call, and we will go from there. Have an absolutely wonderful day, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.